Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the dark psychology of heartbreak. We're going to unpack the raw, unfiltered neuroscience behind exactly why your ex literally cannot let you go. And hey, maybe why you're having a tough time letting go of them too. Look, we all know the scenario, right? You haven't spoken in months, you've moved on, you've finally healed up, and then boom, they re-enter your life out of absolutely nowhere. It leaves you just staring at your phone, wondering, why do they always come back right when you're finally doing fine? You get that classic 2 a.m. text message, or you see their name randomly pop up as a viewer on your social media story. Now, it's so easy to think, oh, this must be romantic destiny. But, well, the science actually tells us your ex's brain is just being a little glitchy right now. When they text you completely out of the blue, it's usually just their brain's flawed memory network matching some random present cue, like a familiar song playing at the grocery store or even a specific smell, to a past emotional state they associate with you. Part 1, the unfinished business loop. To really diagnose this obsession properly, we first need to look at how the human mind handles sudden, unresolved endings. And this brings us to a really fascinating psychological phenomenon known as the Zeigarnik Effect. Discovered way back in the 1920s, it basically explains that our brains remember interrupted or incomplete tasks way better than things we've actually finished. In the context of love, your brain acts like a super aggressive debt collector. Every single unresolved conversation, every ambiguous breakup, or every time you got ghosted acts like an unpaid emotional bill. Your brain absolutely hates loose ends. It desperately wants to settle that bill, which keeps the memory highly, highly active. So how does this actually get filed away in the brain, and how does it build into a full-blown obsession? Well, unlike an ordinary memory, like what you had for lunch last Tuesday, which fades super fast, an emotional memory is a whole different beast. The amygdala, which is basically your brain's biological alarm system, tags these emotional relationship memories as absolutely critical for your survival. It etches in the exact physical state, the sensory details, and the identity your ex experienced when they were with you. Because that memory is tagged as crucial, but the story is technically unfinished, their brain's default mode network goes into absolute overdrive. We're talking endlessly looping through past conversations, inventing wild alternate endings, and relentlessly searching for closure that literally doesn't exist. It's just a system frantically trying to organize a broken story. And here's the kicker. Every single time they replay that memory, the neural pathway just gets stronger and stronger. Moving on to part 2, your brain on love withdrawal. Let's transition from memory to chemistry and look at what is literally happening inside the head when a breakup hits. You can basically view an ex's brain as this highly tuned prediction machine. During the relationship, it learned to expect constant connection rewards from you. A morning text, a physical touch, a comforting word. But after a breakup, it suffers what neuroscientists call a reward prediction error. It expects the usual comfort of your presence, gets absolutely nothing, and generates an intense, overwhelming craving to correct that error. And the crucial takeaway here is that this isn't just sadness. It triggers literal dopamine and cortisol withdrawal. This leads to some severe physical symptoms: massive restlessness, a complete drop in appetite, terrible sleeplessness, and this overwhelming urge to get a fix. You know what I'm talking about. It's that urge that usually manifests as obsessively checking your social media or sending that desperate late-night text. This totally aligns with Dr. Helen Fisher's groundbreaking fMRI research. When her team scanned the brains of people who were recently rejected, they saw a region called the ventral tegmental area, or the VTA, lighting up like a Christmas tree. This is the reward center of the brain that pumps out dopamine. The scans proved that even after rejection, the brain's motivation system stays highly active. And honestly, here's the wildest part. Romantically, a heartbroken brain looks chemically identical to a brain going through cocaine withdrawal. Crazy, right? All right, part 3, the social pain network. See, the damage isn't just chemical. The brain literally, physically hurts when a social tie is completely severed. When we look closely at the brain, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex, the DACC, and the insula, these regions light up vividly during a breakup. What's absolutely incredible here is that these are the exact same regions that process physical pain. So to your brain, the social rejection of a breakup is processed almost identically to spilling boiling water on your hand. When people say, "My heart physically hurts," they aren't being dramatic. It is a genuine, measurable neurological event.
Now, you might be wondering, why on earth are we wired to suffer this much over a breakup? Well, from an evolutionary standpoint, this agonizing social pain acts as a built-in biological alarm system. Think about it. Thousands of years ago, losing a partner meant losing protective resources, social status, and vital tribal connections. That could literally mean death out in the wild. So this pain evolved to keep us from losing those life-saving protective bonds.
Which brings us to part 4, the intermittent reinforcement trap. And this dives into a fascinating, albeit darker part of the science, why the unhealthiest relationships are actually the hardest ones to forget. So if an ex was super unpredictable, giving you tons of affection one day and then totally pulling away the next, that is known as intermittent reinforcement. Unpredictable cycles of harm and reward actually activate dopamine release in the brain much, much more intensely than a healthy, consistent partner ever could. It creates this incredibly powerful, stubborn biochemical addiction that is just insanely difficult to break. This creates a really complex web of relational damage. For instance, trauma bonding is driven by that intermittent reinforcement we just talked about, trapping the brain in a severe dopamine and cortisol craving cycle. Meanwhile, codependency is more about identity fusion, where a person completely strips away their independent identity to take on a caretaking role. Both of these dynamics make leaving, and more importantly staying away, feel neurologically impossible at times. All right, part 5, attachment styles and healing. So how do we actually get out of this awful loop? Let's look at how individual attachment styles dictate who recovers quickly and who stays stuck in obsession. Recent clinical studies highlight a pretty fascinating split here. People with an anxious attachment style experience a ton of hyperactivated distress right up front. But surprisingly, all that intense rumination and reflection often acts as a massive catalyst for profound personal growth over time. On the flip side, avoidant individuals tend to suppress their pain and deactivate their distress. By inhibiting that deep cognitive work, they actually just delay their true healing. They kick the can down the road. So if you want to heal a heartbroken brain, it requires some very specific, actionable steps. First, you absolutely must acknowledge that the physical pain is real. Give yourself some grace. Your brain is literally in withdrawal. Second, you need to regulate your cortisol levels through physical movement and exercise to help calm that frantic nervous system down. And third, this is big, you must strictly limit triggers. That means no contact and absolutely no social media checking. You have to starve those addictive dopamine associations. But hey, the incredibly good news here is a little thing called neuroplasticity. By starving the old pathways of attention, your prefrontal cortex gradually and quite beautifully adapts to the absence of that partner. It starts exerting top-down control over your emotional limbic system, forming brand new neural pathways that eventually extinguish the obsession and those pesky conditioned addictive responses. I really want to highlight this brilliant perspective from psychiatrist Dr. Tracy Marks. She notes that recovery means the memory still exists, but it finally loses the power to control your nervous system in the present. You don't have to somehow permanently erase them from your mind like some sci-fi movie. You just have to lower the emotional charge so they stop dictating your present reality. So, what should we really take away from all this data? Well, the next time your ex reaches out in the middle of the night or you feel that sudden, overwhelming urge to look back at old photos, I want you to ask yourself a very serious question. Are you really mourning a soulmate? Or is your brain just surviving a chemical withdrawal? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I